Chapter 149, Swallow Sword Technique. This chapter is updated by novels.pl. There were only 7 steps between the two people that had been mutually confronting each other. No one attacked first. The one who attacked first would certainly reveal his flaw first. At the moment, they did not even blink their eyes but stared straight into each other's eyes. Only a distance of 7 steps. Who would dare to blink? The moment you blinked, you had lost. This was a fight between masters and no subtle mistake could be committed. It was not simply a sword competition, but also the competition of spiritual power, volition, and patience. Having confronted for an hour, they were still motionless. Gradually, King Chaibai's eyes began to sour, and his eyelids also jumped slightly. In contrast, Zhang Yuochen was still as stable as Mount Tai, like a peaceful ancient wall. He was motionless without any changes. Zhang Yuochen opened up his eye vessels in which he could infiltrate genuine qi into his eyes directly. Surely, he could persist longer than King Chaibai. I can't wait any longer. If it goes on like this, it will be bad for me. King Chaibai held his sword tightly. Swish. Without any indication, King Chaibai suddenly took a step forward, spreading genuine qi into the meridians of his legs and stimulated his speed to the fastest extent. Before the crowds reacted, the sword had pierced through Zhang Yuochen's body. However, Zhang Yuochen's body faded gradually and completely disappeared in the end. It turned out that King Chaibai only stabbed on the illusory image of Zhang Yuochen, not his real body. In the moment when King Chaibai stabbed at him, Zhang Yuochen jumped up to the sky in advance. He swayed his sword toward King Chaibai at a faster speed. When King Chaibai pierced the air, he immediately changed the direction of his sword and swung it upward. Boom! 2 broken swords crashed together and a large splashed out. Meanwhile, Zhang Yuochen unleashed his left hand. He displayed the move Dragon in the sky and hit King Chaibai's chest. Only by cultivating spiritual power above level 20 could accomplish the multitask, making one hand use a sword while the other hand used a palm without affecting each other. Cloud-breaking fist. King Chaibai also stretched his left hand forward and shot out his fist that caused vibration in the air around his fist. Boom! They separated at the same time. Within a second, the two clashed again and continued to fight. Water Dragon Pearls. King Chaibai displayed a low-class sword technique of the spiritual. Driven by genuine qi, the sword waved swiftly into a shadow of a faint dragon. The air surrounding it broke out with the sound of a surging tide. The sword breath joined together and became a giant dragon, surging towards Zhang Yuochen. King Chaibai also rushed out with his sword edge rotating to form sword circle that looked as if they were spat out dragon balls. A series of 8 sword circle gathered together to form a wonderful sword technique. Under the attack of the sword breath dragon and the 8 sword circle, Zhang Yuochen could only passively defend and kept stepping back. Finally, Zhang Yuochen retreated to the edge of the battle stage. He thrust onto the ground and spread his arms out. His body was light as a swallow, so he flew back and fell into the pool below. Where to go? King Chaibai pinched the combat sword in one hand and placed his other hand behind his back as he stepped onto the edge of the battle stage. He flew out and overtook Zhang Yuochen. At that time, Zhang Yuochen displayed Shadow of the Royal Wind Dragon where his falling body had stopped momentarily. Unexpectedly, he dashed upward to a height of 3 meters where above King Chaibai. Sacred Plenilune Sword. Zhang Yuochen held the sword with both hands and infiltrated genuine qi into the sword completely. It condensed a huge bright sword circle, then split down toward King Chaibai. Good bodily movement. King Chaibai shouted a good call. Both his hands went upward. By the power of the recoil, his body fell down quickly and he reached the pool below the battle stage. If it was another warrior, he would certainly have fallen into the water. Yet, the instant that King Chaibai was falling into the water, a mass of blue clouds appeared below his feet and supported his body. His feet just sank a little as if he was walking on the ground and he flew away. Boom! As King Chaibai dodged, Zhang Yuochen cut downward and split the position that King Chaibai had just stood in. The surface of the water broke and produced a large splash. Zhang Yuochen stepped on the waves and flew with the wind. His body movement was so elegant that he looked like a teenaged sword fairy, walking on the water and in pursuit of King Chibai rapidly. Meteoric Rise of King Chibai was indeed a very powerful martial technique, but its speed was not as good as Shadow of the Royal Wind Dragon. Quickly, Zhang Yuochen caught up with him. Sacred Wave Sword. Zhang Yuochen's body rotated rapidly from his head to his toes. Water in the pool rolled up and formed waves of water. Driven by the sword breath, the waves surged toward King Chibai. Seeing that he was about to be rolled into the pool by the water waves, King Chibai suddenly stopped and turned around. He chopped his sword straight down and spoke a word. Break. Boom. A sword breath more than 10 meters long broke the waves of water and cut toward Zhang Yuochen. Zhang Yuochen tiptoed on the water like a flying dragon, soaring to more than 30 meters high. Then he fell to the top of a willow, which was beside the pool, stepping on the leaves, while his body did not fall. King Chibai is indeed the most outstanding person in the thousands of years of Cayenne's Yui Commandery. When he reaches the medium state of the Black Realm, it's estimated that he would be at the same level of Liu Oxu. Although he tried his best to compress his cultivation to the medium state of the Black Realm, actually his true cultivation is in the mid-stage of the Earth Realm. Whether it's his degree of refining genuine Qi, the strength of his constitution, or his sophistication of martial arts, he is far from comparable to those who are extremely skilled in the medium state of the Black Realm, Zhang Yuochen thought. In other words, although King Chibai had now suppressed his cultivation to the medium state of the Black Realm, his current ability could easily defeat him at the medium state of the Black Realm 6 years ago. If Zhang Yuochen regarded him as a warrior of the medium state of the Black Realm, he would have been totally wrong. Originally, I thought King Chibai would take the absolute advantage and defeat Zhang Yuochen within a few movements. But I didn't expect that they will fight neck and neck. Chuobal Insu was not reconciled after being defeated by Zhang Yuochen. Yet, seeing the fight between Zhang Yuochen and King Chibai, he was convinced. Liu Xin's face was quite fiendish. He said angrily, how could he be so strong? King Chibai has indeed practiced the realm of sword comprehension to the peak realm of sword following the heart. Chuobal Insu sneered and said, can't you see that Zhang Yuochen has also practiced the realm of sword comprehension to the peak realm of sword following the heart? What? Liu Xin had been thinking how brutal Zhang Yuochen would be defeated instead of observing his fight with King Chibai. Therefore, he did not notice that the realm of Zhang Yuochen's sword techniques was comparable to King Chibai. Xungihai said, if Zhang Yuochen didn't practice the sword technique sword following the heart to the peak, he would have been defeated by King Chibai. He was only 17 years old and was able to practice sword following the heart to the peak when he just reached the medium state of the Black Realm. His talent was indeed incredible. In fact, Xungihai was also jealous of Zhang Yuochen, but the purpose of his trip was Commandery Princess Yanjun, who was more beautiful, more outstanding, and was attached to great importance by Cayenne's Yui Commandery Prince, rather than the 13th Commandery. He and Zhang Yuochen did not have a conflict of interest, so Xungihai did not react as radically as Liu Xin. This bastard. I cannot believe he hides his ability of reaching the peak of sword following the heart. How much power is he still hiding? Huang Yanjun kept her eyes wide open. There was an urge to fight with him and force Zhang Yuochen to show all of his ability. Huang Yanjun had just practiced her sword comprehension to the advanced stage of sword following the heart a few days ago. Therefore, she was happy for a long time, and yet, she was struck by Zhang Yuochen again. With the ability of King Chibai, he should be able to make Zhang Yuochen show his true ability. Huang Yanjun turned her mouth up slightly and exposed a row of snow-white teeth. King Chibai stood on the water solidly. His clothes were greener than the pool water, and his long hair fluttered without any wind. Even if he was just standing still, there were invisible sword breaths around his body, which sent out a sound of shwa, shwa. If someone dared to walk within 5 steps of the area around his body, he would have been shattered by invisible sword breaths. This was the peak of sword following the heart. In ordinary people's opinions, King Chibai, at that moment, had no differences from a sword god in the legends. King Chibai was a person who cherished his reputation. As a disciple of a half-saint, He needed to be excellent and do his best to defeat Zhang Yuochen in the shortest time. Zhang Yuochen did not have such a burden like King Chaibai had. But he also wanted to win. He wanted to break through to a higher realm from this battle between King Chaibai and himself. That realm was known as Heart integrated into Sword. King Chaibai just reached the peak of Sword following the Heart, and he still had a long way to go to reach Heart integrated into Sword. Zhang Yuochen was in the realm of Heart integrated into Sword in his last lifetime. Therefore, it was relatively easier for him to reach the realm of Heart integrated into Sword than King Chaibai. At that moment, Zhang Yuochen's Sword realm was only one step away from Heart integrated into Sword. Zhang Yuochen's realm was higher than King Chaibai's peak of Sword following the Heart. Of course, King Chaibai possessed a number of advantages that Zhang Yuochen was lacking, which caused the fight to go neck and neck. If I use the time and space domain, then I'll have an 80% chance to defeat him. Zhang Yuochen thought for a moment seriously. He shook his head again and decided it better not to expose the power of the time and space domain. Those big men of Cayenne's UE commandery must have certainly been paying attention to this fight in secret. Other MasterCards could be exposed, but the time and space domain was Zhang Yuochen's biggest card, so it absolutely could not be exposed. Swallows taking water. After a brief confrontation, King Chaibai moved first as if he was a swallow flying on the water. His cyan combat sword looked like a swallow's tail that kept shaking, then it formed sword shadows. The martial technique in the mid-class of the spiritual stage. Swallow sword technique. Zhang Yuochen did not practice sword techniques in the mid-class of the spiritual stage, so he had to continue using the low class of spiritual, sacred sword skill, to fight. Sacred breaking plum sword. Zhang Yuochen flew from the top of the willow, and stabbed, then shattered all of the sword breaths of King Chaibai. King Chaibai did not panic at all. He changed tactics immediately, swallows returning to nest. His cyan fighting sword pierced Zhang Yuochen's heart. Spotting the sharp sword breath, Zhang Yuochen stepped back quickly, but his sleeves were crushed, making a sound of rip, rip. His white sleeves were shattered into pieces by the sword breaths and fell into the water. King Chaibai took the advantage and pursued him, and the sword in hand was like a flying swallow. He quickly stabbed towards Zhang Yuochen's neck,